Hello YouTube, this is Kylia. I'm sure if you're looking at this video, you've been to my channel before. If you haven't, I was a creator or the guy who first showed everyone the glamour build that recently got nerfed. Also in charge of the Cinefusion build as well. And I run a podcast with my friend Pyro Atheist on sittingonacouch.com every week, rotated around Mesmers. As I'm sure most of you know, if you're coming here, Mesmer's got quite a big nerf last week. Or when I was recording this, it was last week, just to give you guys an idea when it was recorded, in regards to confusion. So it's required us to really adapt the way we look at builds. Now, I had the pleasure, along with Pyro, to interview Grims, who is the maker of the Seven Mirrors build. So you can imagine you had three Mesmers, the Immortal build, the Seven Mirrors build, the Glamour build, all in the same channel together having a chat just after the patch. Well, ideas are going to come out. And one of the ideas that came out, and you'll hear it on the podcast, is the lockdown build. And I'd like to present to you one of the incantations of the lockdown build. There's going to be a couple. There's going to be one that's a group-based lockdown build. This one is a solo-based one-on-one lockdown build. So if you thought griefing and trolling on a thief was good, wait till you try it out with this build. So let's go have a look at what the build is. And we'll start off with our traits. So as you can see, we're running 30, 10, 0, 0, 30. The reason we're running 30, 10, 0, 0, 30 are for the two Grandmaster traits. So the first one we're going to be looking at is Confounding Suggestions, which gives you a 50% chance to cause 1 second stun whenever you daze target. Secondly, the reason we're going to Illusions is because we want to go for the Illusionary Persona, and I'll describe that a lot more on how to use it in combat shortly. We have a look at the rest of our traits. We have Rendering Shatter, so vulnerability on Shatter. Halting Strike, so deal damage when interrupting your foe. And this one's currently being played around with as an option, but I found that it's quite useful at the present time. It's fun to play with. We've gone into Dueling and grabbed Blade Training, and the reason for this is we're using Sword quite a bit. So to have the extra precision, first of all, is always great, because I mean we're dealing, as you'll see with the stats in a second, with some good precision. But the recharge lowered down is going to mean you're going to have a lot more active abilities going on continuously. Finally, in Illusions, running Confusing Cry for Cry, Frustration, Retaliation, and Master Reflection for Distortion, Retaliation. So you can see there's a bit of retaliation play there. Having a look at the equipment I'm running, so I am running a full Berserker's outfit with, I don't think you'd ever see a build using this rune before, but the superior rune of the Mesmer. Part of the conversation that Pyro, Grims, and I had was around, well, they created a rune, ANET, that was for the Mesmer, I mean specific, it's got the name in it, and it talks about days. Yet no one has really explored and played with days in regards to centralizing a build. Yet we've been given a whole rune set that says days should be something you work on. So we were talking about, and I won't spoil the podcast because I think you guys should all have a listen to anyway, but we're talking about how we don't know if Confusion was ANET's primary focus, and we think it might be days. So we're playing around with it and seeing what ANET's given us to play with. So Berserker across the board, Berserker across the board over here as well, and running Berserker across the board. So the great thing or the bad thing about Berserker is high power, high precision, high crit damage, no survivability. Alright, remember that if you get hit, it's going to feel like you've been hit by a truck. And we'll talk about combat in that in a second. Rune set wise, we're actually running 4 runes of paralyzation. The great thing about this build currently, and I can just see prices shooting up, is the Paralyzation rune costs like 3 silver. It's absolutely nothing. The Mesmer rune costs about 40 silver at time of recording, so it's a very cheap build for you to build. And as I said, it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'll see if I can maybe post another video of me playing around with it. I tried running around today to find some 1v1s, but for some reason TC and DB were just running around with 70-man Zergs. And there's nothing you can do by yourself with 70-man Zerg. Alright, so the mechanic on the way this works is you want to play in the space of denying the other person of doing anything. Literally, chain stunning. And this, the Mesmer has the actual ability to do it because we have so many ways of getting stuns. So let's have a look at the weapons choices. As you can see, I've gone for a scepter along with a sword, and then a sword along with a gun. Tough choice because I really wanted to play with the staff and the focus because I think they're both absolutely brilliant in World v World, but wanted to look at something that really maximized what this build is about, the lockdown build. Alright, and you can see I'm sitting at about 55% crit chance, 78% critical damage. So even something like confusing images is actually doing about 6,000 damage a hit for the full burst. Really good fun. But let's have a look at what really makes this build work, and it's about maximizing daze and stun. So first of all, the version will have a daze on it. Now, the more clones you have, the more chances this daze will then cause a stun, because it's a 50% chance. The way daze works, or the version works, should I say, is that if as soon as a clone hits it, it fires off the daze. If you're able to stagger your clones, and I'll show you some ways of doing that in a second, you can actually have the daze hit multiple times. But if all the clones hit at once, so you have 3 clones charge up and blow up, you only get the 1 second of daze, or longer, because you've got the longer aspects of the Mesmer runes, but you'll also have 50% chance for each of those explosions to then do the stun as well. So it benefits not only staggering your clones out, but also doing an initial burst, because the initial burst will guarantee you pretty much a stun, where the stagger will guarantee you a bunch of dazes with potential stuns involved. Now, on top of that, let's look at the sword offhand. The counterblade, if you shoot it twice, gives you a daze. So that's an extended daze due to the runes, plus a 50% chance to stun. On top of that, we're going to flick over. In the pistol, magic bullet, you've got a daze and a stun there. So that's potential for that if you're hitting 2 people for 2 stuns anyway. As well, we've got the Signal of Domination, which gives you, on activation, another stun. And the Mantra of Distraction, which gives you 2 shots of daze, which again gives you chances to stun. I can already see your minds working, because I know mine was when I was like, wow, so many things. On top of that, things such as your Illusionary Leap can immobilize. So an immobilize plus a daze equals pretty much a stun anyway. On top of that, the great thing about having, I'm going to flick back to it, Illusionary Persona, and one of the things that is really important with this with the way you combat with this battle is you're going to keep them locked for between 15 seconds to 20 seconds, depending on how well you chain what you're doing. And the great thing is, if you stun and then leave for I think it's a third of a second, and then do again, that third of the second is going to do nothing, because most abilities won't go off in that time, and you'll get an interrupt, which means you'll get more damage from the ulting strike. With me still? Great. Now, one of the great things with Illusionary Persona is all your shatters are automatically going to work bouncing off you, even if you haven't got clones. So you become the source of the shatter as well. So once you've got them stunned, you want to get them close. Something like a leap is great. You've got your blast from your blurred friends, which is also your oh crap, something's hitting me, I gotta protect myself then. But you can also chain F1 to F4. Now you'll get yourself your rack. You'll get yourself your cry, which will go to your confusion plus your retaliation as well. You'll get yourself the version, which gives you another, your stun. And if you need to, you got your distortion, which gives you the evade plus a retaliation. On top of that, on the scepter side of things, if you need to pull some space away, you're going to do quite a bit of damage with your confusing images. At the same time, if you need to, you can throw up 2 different blocks, which gives you a lot of protection. Finally, the great thing about the way this build is built is your swordsman, which is the highest hitting phantasm out there, and your duelist are great damage dealers, and they will do most of the damage for you. So the real idea behind this, and in worst case scenario, you've got your wonderful dogs. If you don't run dogs, then I'd probably suggest haste, get your time warp down, and let your duelist just go crazy. The great thing, and really the way to play this build, is to start off stunning them, get your illusions out, and decide on 1 or 2, or play with like throwing up your distortion to get your time to get the second one out, and just then continuously control the other person. Stun, stun, stun. There is practically no class out there that can mitigate the amount of stuns you can produce with this build. And by the time you get to your last stun, and the great thing is, some of these are quite short. Remember, we've got the sword aspect. So here, you've got a stun on a 12-second cooldown, right? You've got a stun on a 25-second cooldown. You've got a stun on 45-second. 2 stuns that are with a 5-second cooldown as well, plus a 30-second, plus you've got another stun on a 31-second here. So within 30 seconds, you're going to have all your stuns refreshed anyway. Some of them will be twice or 3 times. At the same time, you're able to jump around the place. You're able to throw yourself a 2-second evade every 8 seconds. That's a quarter of the time you can be evading. And you've got 2 sets of blocks. So you've got a lot of damage mitigation. It's really about being active. So I know that Pyro and I have talked about previously in certain podcasts that one of the things that makes Mesmer so good is we've got a lot of active mitigation. You have to be on ball. This is a high micro intensive build. This isn't a build that you can just pick up and be OP at it. But if you take the time to really get into it and play it, you're going to be doing a lot of damage. Now, really handy with this build as well because we're running high power, high precision, high crit. Right, so you're already doing a lot of damage. This build allows you to build up really quickly up to about 20 to 25 stacks of vulnerability because you've got vulnerability coming in from your illusion of vulnerability. You're getting 3 stacks whenever you interrupt, and you'll be doing a lot of interrupts. You'll be getting the stacks from the shatters as well. You'll be getting the stacks from dazing. We're doing dazes quite a lot. So just along the top here, you're getting a whole bunch of stacks from vulnerability, just like that. You're also getting mites. You're getting more and more damage from your shatter as well. And the great thing, you're giving confusion on top of that. The great thing is that you can shatter at any time because of the illusionary persona. And that's really the key here. Oh, I'm going to get kicked in a second. You need to make sure that you're rotating and using the shatters whenever possible at the right time. Remembering they have to be next to you, except for the F4, unless you've got clones out. And you've got your mirror image there. I have tossed around and played around a bit with swapping it to either a decoy or a null field or an arcane theory, depending on if you've got a pre-sanctioned combat. You're coming up against someone who's maybe condition heavy, you might go for an null field, for example. If you've got someone who you really need to play in the staying away from them space as long as possible, you go for like the decoy, which gives you then the extra shatter as well. That number 7 utility I really feel is customizable. That said, for the I don't know who I'm going up against, I think the mirror images is absolutely brilliant because to be able to push out a high lot of shatter pretty quickly is really handy as well because you'll be doing a lot of shattering with this build. That's pretty much the build. Let's talk about food I'm using. So currently I use the Master Maintenance Oil, which is your extra precision based on your toughness and your vitality. So it really shoots your precision up even higher. And then I'm playing around with either the Bowl of Curry Butternut Squash Soup because you just can't do more damage, which is precision or critical damage. Or if I feel I need a bit of damage mitigation, I'll play with either the Omnomberry Ghosts to get the lifesteal or the Lemongrass Poultry Soup to really burn, keep me alive a bit better on the condition damage. So I'm really running those sort of 3. Overall, the combats I have done, and I have done some testing in SPPV to start with before I spent the money on the build, was it worked out really well. I was able to lock down the majority of people I'm coming up against. But I really wanted to get some video, and hopefully soon, of me testing it in World v World, where I've got the foods, I've got the different buffs and that sort of case, and you're running a lot more what I feel is a less controlled environment, which I think is really important for builds like this. Look, put some comments down the bottom if there's anything you'd like to ask. I have had a lot of success with this build. I wanted to share it with you guys because I know we've had the demoralizing patch that has affected a lot of people, and this is one of those fun builds that takes a bit of time to really perfect, and I've really enjoyed playing with it. So until next time, YouTube, have a great night.